A couple of things. I know we're all going to pile on top of Scott here with congratulations to the administration and the team for putting together such a remarkable event. Just before it started, Jennifer Trustee Stebbin handed her camera to somebody and said, could you please take a picture? And what resulted was this, what I think is historically is going to be a most fascinating picture, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 100 years down the way. And I just want to let you know, Scott, I'm not sure if you can see it with your limited bandwidth up there in the UP, but I have a version of it here that we're going to frame, and we'd like it to go in the archives, either hang on the wall in the boardroom or something like that, so that people can look back on these. I'll just get out of the way here, look back on this. We also, not just to note us, the fact that we're all masked and responding to the pandemic, but to recognize the students and that they deserve all the recognition they got that day. And it was worth every moment. And I just want to thank you, Scott, and administrative team for putting it together. It was quite amazing. And that's all I have to say. I bet others might have something to say too about
that. Paul?
I concur with everything that Michael said and Scott said. It was a great event. I also went to the Coalition for Quality Community on June 10th, and all the different areas of the city. We got together for a Zoom meeting, and we kind of discussed what everyone was doing COVID-wise and plans to reopen, which are still kind of in place a little bit, and people are coming around. So our next meeting, we think we're going to go outdoors and go tour the Rentschler farm. So we're looking forward to that. I would also like to, 8 years ago, we had Mr. Ben Williams leave the high school for a superintendent job. 4 years ago, Julie Helber left the high school to go for a superintendent job. And this year we have Mr. Brad Bisu, who left the middle school to go for a superintendent job. So we started to honor Julie 4 years ago, and we have a little something here for Brad. Hi, I'm here with Dr. Brad Bisu, who is the new superintendent of Manchester Community Schools. And we are here because he has finished his requirements for superintendent training school at Saline area schools. So I'd like to ask Superintendent Graydon, did Dr. Bisu meet all the requirements of superintendent training school?
As superintendent of Saline area schools, I would like to confirm that Dr. Bisu has met and exceeded his degree requirements for graduation.
Thank you, Scott. That's good to know. So, Mr. Bisu, here is your diploma.
Wow, thank you, Trustee Hynek. It's certainly an honor to have graduated from the Saline area schools leadership and superintendency program. I'll cherish this for the rest of my life. Thank you, Board of Education.
So good luck. Always good to see our leadership move on to bigger and better things.
They must be trained really well to keep moving on to superintendencies. So keep up the great work in the district. Other comments, board reports that anybody has to make? Susan?
Yes, so I know a few of us were on the MASB updates with the executive orders. I saw maybe 3 of us on there. And so it just, discussed that there was discussions of how, extending the executive orders. In particular, there was a discussion around keeping our meetings online right now. And also I talked to Scott about where we're having a closed meeting and the different options with that. So one of the options was to come in person, but then, that's not recommended, but the process that we're doing tonight where we're able to keep this open, and then going off to another call and then coming back on to close the session. So I think that came in handy. And then I wanted to mention, yes, graduation was awesome. I was there for all 4 components. 2 o'clock, I thought I was going to die, but we hung in there and made it. So, and yeah, there were so many great people behind the scenes. I seen everybody working really hard, and just the smiles on the faces of the students and the parents and families in the crowd was just wonderful. So I'm happy we were able to pull it off and see what our students do next. I wanted to mention there is a student-led protest coming up, and it's this weekend. It's the Black Lives Matters Saline protest, peaceful protest. So go on. I think it's posted in various places on Facebook. So if you want to get information about that, look at that, and I can send something out later to let you know. But yeah, it's totally student-led from Saline students, and I think it'll be great.
Jennifer?
Yeah, hi. Yep, gotta glom on to the graduation praise for sure. I mean, to David Rapp, to the entire high school staff, buildings and grounds, all of the volunteers from the PTA and PTOs and the community. It was a tremendously hot and wonderful event. Susan's right. I saw tons of smiles, and it was a wonderful occasion to finally get some closure, I think, for our class of 2020. And they are incredibly resilient. I'm proud of them all, and I wish them all the best of luck. So thank you to everyone that participated, all of the families and the students. With regards to the Return to Learn news that came out today, I would encourage everyone, this is something that's coming from the Michigan GOP. I'd like to remind everyone that education should be bipartisan. We should all be working together, and you still can influence what happens with your dollars and your money that should be going to public schools. I wrote to Senator Tice today to encourage not just allocating funds for distance learning and PPE, but having more local control over how we can spend that money with regards to COVID issues and things that we might be able to save that we would normally spend from our general fund, like people. So please write to your legislators and encourage public funding. The other thing that I wanted to mention is I love getting community feedback. And most feedback this week was about graduation. It was very, very positive. But I did receive one piece of feedback from a parent, and I just wanted to state something about our board overall and the election process and local elections. I know we have a lot of national elections, but we have a lot of local elections as well. We've talked a lot about diversity, and I truly believe that you don't just talk the talk, you walk the walk. And I look forward, hopefully, to marginalized groups and persons of color running for different boards and city councils and things like that. The feedback that I received was that some folks are feeling a little fearful of repercussions, either on them or their children who have already experienced some trauma. And I will not minimize that, and I will not pretend to understand that perspective because I don't live that. But I can promise anybody that the leadership team here represented on Zoom and the folks that aren't on Zoom right now that lead Saline schools believe in equity, and hopefully we will prove that out in the next year. So thank you.
Michael.
Sorry for jumping back in. I just wanted to add on to what Susan said, and thank you, Jennifer, and thank you, Susan. One of the interesting things that came up at that MASB talk, which I hadn't thought about, was once we return to our live board meetings, and I'm looking forward to that, there may still be members of the community who feel they're not ready to be in a group, or they're immunocompromised, or they're just not ready. There have been some conversations about the legal ability to let them join us remotely. for the public comment section. And so it sounds like MASB thinks there should be no difficulty with that, especially during like this, the transition months as soon as we get back. So this is something we all going to have to talk about. And I know MASB has a number of comments about it. I also want to talk about this return to learning. Yeah, I read through the legislation today. Thanks, Jennifer, and thanks, Susan, for bringing that to our attention. I've been lobbying to try and get e-learning recognized for ages, and now I'm reading the details of what the legislation might be, and I'm glad it's getting out there, but I think we have a number of the devil's in the details, so to speak. And as we go forward, I may actually try and get on a committee to provide testimony, if we could, about the nature of e-learning and what the requirements are. So I urge you all to give that legislation a read. And just remember, this is the first step. It's probably going to go through a number of committee readings before it finally gets, some finished package. But thank you for bringing that up.
Other comments? Board reports, board updates. Paul?
I just have one quick thing to ping on with what Jennifer said. If you would like to run for the Board of Education, applications are due in the clerk's office by July 21st at 4 p.m.
I would like to add on to that a little bit. If you're filling out your application, there is a little bit of a confusion. Full term, we have a 4-year full term and a 6-year full term. So you do need to say on your application if it's the full 4-year or the full 6-year term. So just so you know, that can be a little confusing, and you would hate to have to resubmit the form like I had to, because I didn't say full 4-year and they assumed it was a 6-year. So I just needed to put the ending date of when that full year, the full term ends. So just make sure that you pay attention to that if you are deciding to run. Any other? Okay, let's move on to, I would like